What's up, party people? Hope you are doing well. Welcome back to Mediocre Park. This one's going to be just a normal episode as we're used to. Last episode I know was just a bit of an update and kind of taking a tour around the park that we have so far, which really isn't much, which is a little disappointing with how I wanted to run the series, but at the same time it's really exciting because that means we have a lot more of this to go. So we're just going to get right into it today while I kind of explain what the goal of today's episode is going to be. First up, we're going to work on the pathing and kind of getting the basic layout of this coaster station and the queue and how everything is going to kind of start to shape together as this goes on a bit more into the series. We're not going to work on the station today because I want to make sure that the station is done right, and I just don't think I have the facilities right now to be able to make a good station. So right now we're just going to kind of get the queue layout going, get the priority pass going, and then decorate that up a little bit, because if you remember, the console park had honestly really awesome queues. I loved the queues of the console park. My two favorite ones, probably the observation tower in the center of the park and the sci-fi coaster. Those were probably my favorite queues. Even though the Woody queue was really cool and just had a nice vibe to it, I think those queues were just really like the most well done and just the best like technical achievement that I had done with all of the different sound effects. And as far as the observation tower queue goes, it was just like the landscaping. I was really proud of the landscaping I did for that. But yeah, so we're just working on the queue, we're getting the priority pass sorted out, and then we're going to do some decorating. So I'm just going to let this footage play out, and I'll be back when we get to some of the landscaping and decorating, because that's honestly probably my favorite part of this. Enjoy. So now that we've kind of finished up the pathing here of the queue, the exit, the priority pass, and all of that, we can kind of get an idea for the future of how we're going to build the station around this. I think it has a lot of potential to be really interesting. I just have to get my building skills up to snuff a little bit more before we can do that. But yeah, here is definitely probably my favorite part of building parks, is kind of making it feel alive, natural, making it really feel like it's a part of something rather than just like, I've stuck this here, it's here now. I think landscaping really goes a long way if it's done well, in just making things feel right, for lack of a better term. So we're picking out which types of trees we want to use here. I believe I went with the deciduous, and I don't know what else I went with. I know deciduous was definitely the main one. I think I may have gone with alpine as well. Sorry, a little bit of F1 kicked into my brain there with the alpine. But yeah, so we just put those filters on, and now we're kind of putting these trees around kind of sparsely at first, because we're going to fill it in with different species so it doesn't look really uniform. One thing to keep in mind if you're using trees, bushes, plants, whatever, definitely rocks as well, is just to rotate them every now and then, especially if you're putting the same type of tree or rock or whatever right next to each other. Definitely rotate them a bit so they don't look as uniform and identical, because obviously in nature you're not going to have identical trees. Everything's going to be a little different, and definitely change the height up as well every now and then. Mix in your different species, all of that. And then a little bit later, you're going to see a pretty cool trick I do with the oak tree, which is I actually sink it into the ground and use it as kind of underbrush or like bush cover. Here it is right now, actually. So here I'm just placing it as usual, and then you'll see right there, it's kind of in the ground, and I'm using it as bushes, which is something you'll see return a lot throughout the series and definitely throughout this episode. So yeah, I'm just kind of filling in the areas with trees, and I'll pop down to the path every now and then to make sure it's looking right. Make sure it doesn't look too uniform, make sure there's no crazy gaps where it just looks really artificial. And yeah, so that's going to be the bulk of this episode. I'm just going to let this footage play out until there's something of note that I need to talk about. But yeah, a lot of interesting techniques used by me here. Some of them I've found from other people, some of them I've just kind of experimented with and come up with on my own, especially during the console part. That was a big stepping stone to me learning how to use all of this different landscaping stuff. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave y'all to it. Enjoy the footage. So right here you can see a good bit of what I was talking about earlier with using those oak trees as kind of like underbrush and bushes to make things feel a little bit more fleshed out, and so that when you're at, you know, civilian level, pedestrian level, you can see if there's any gaps that like you could just see straight under the trees, because you won't really have a lot of that in a theme park, especially a really woodsy area. They try to make everything feel really lush and full. And one of my big things when I'm making any park is just when you're in a queue, or if you're in an area that's supposed to feel its own area, I really want to make sure that you don't feel too connected from the rest of the park. A lot of parks, especially heavily themed parks, will have like areas where when you go in them, you don't really have like a concept of how large they really are, or like where you are in the park. You just kind of enter that area and then you're just in that area. It's just like you've been transported, and it's just like a super weird and cool feeling that you really just can't get anywhere other than a theme park. So I really like to try to encapsulate that whenever I create my parks. And right here, just trying to make this last section feel a little bit more full. I was gonna leave it as is, but then as I started looking at it, I was like, well, the lead into this area looks so lush and full, and the queue is so lush, and this area of the track is supposed to be like really foresty and thick. I was like, I just feel like there needs to be more around this track. So I'm actually just gonna copy and paste this huge clump of trees that I just made, rotate it around a little bit, make it fit right, and just kind of duplicate that a few times so that it looks like you're more in a forest. And then once I'm done with that, you'll see very shortly, I just start putting trees a little bit more around this go-kart track. My idea with the go-kart track really is just gonna be to like make it feel like as you're zipping through it and you go past like the different rides and the different parts of the park, that you're really just like passing through all of the different parts. So like right here, you'll be zipping through this forest and you're like, oh, I must be right next to Cernunnos. And when you go past like some of the other coasters or rides later, you'll just like kind of know where you are in the park while you're on this go-kart track. And I think that'll be a pretty neat experience. So yeah, I'm just kind of, like I said, filling this out, making it look a little bit more foresty. and yeah, just placing these trees around the go-kart track here. And then I'll take a couple rides on the coaster to make sure that it looks fitting and it looks right and it looks how I would like it to look once you get towards the end of the track. But yeah, I'm just going to leave you to the footage again, and I'll talk to you in a couple minutes. So yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the building of this episode. Right now I'm just going to hop on the track and take a look at different parts of the coaster that might need a little bit of improvement, and definitely look at that ending bit to make sure it's up to snuff. But yeah, this coaster's coming along. I'm really satisfied with the progress, and I definitely want this coaster to feel connected front to back, with kind of like the storyline I'm going with kind of the life and death aspect, with the green plants and the dry rocks that we talked about, I believe in the last episode, maybe the episode before that. But yeah, so I'm just kind of running through. The midsection's looking a little dead, but look at this ending bit right here. It's just looking so much better than it used to. It looks like it's a part of something now. It looks themed. It looks awesome. I'm really happy with it. And yeah, so that's gonna do it for this episode. This one should be coming out a week after the last one, so you're welcome for that. I really tried, and hopefully I'll see you again next week.